Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my video, and today I'll be showing you how to set up and configure the JJRC JJPRO P200 here. And now this will be sort of the beginner setup guide that I'll be doing using the stop props, not too advanced settings, nothing that's not too hard to do in the software, as well as the stock 3S battery. I'm just going to go over quick. I added my receiver in because I got the Maiden Flight version, and I just put or the almost rated fly, I just put a FrSky D4 R2 in there. However, if you just put a connector over, let me try and zoom in a little bit. If you just put a connector over it, it'll get in the way of the props. It sticks out too much. So what I did was basically I cut the connector off, and as you can see there, I just soldered the wires straight to the pins. They stick real well, and then I just reinforced it with a little bit of hot glue, and the receiver just fits in there like that. It was a pretty tight fit with the camera, but I got it in there, and I just have the little jumper over channels 3 and 4 here to run this in ppm. I tried to get X4R SB to work, to get it in S-Bus, but the Emax Skyline's kind of complicated to get S-Bus to work, just like an ACE32, because the inverted signal and then all this other stuff in there, so it just wasn't going to work. I didn't want to spend that much time on it, so I just reverted back to ppm. So there will be a little bit more latency. And then I just ran the wires up through little holes in here out to zip ties and heat shrunk them like that. Nice little holes. It seems like the holes were designed for that, where the antennas come out and then the zip ties. It all fit perfectly. So now that that is all done, I explained that. Let's go over to the computer and I'll show you how to set this baby up. Alright, so here we are. As you can see, I've got the laptop booted up here, as well as the quad sitting there. So first things what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Clean Flight here, and if you haven't downloaded Clean Flight, you're going to need to do that. I'm not going to go over that in this video, but you need Clean Flight and the, if you can see down here, the associated drivers to be able to read the board. So if you don't have that, look that up and do that, and then come back to the video here. So let's plug the quad in here. Let's do that, then plug it into the computer and hit connect. So that one didn't connect. Let's see, I'm probably on the wrong, yep, I was on the wrong COM port there. I'm not sure why the quad's moving, the gyro there, but let me actually look through here in just a second. Alright, here we are. Let me just plug the battery in. I had to go get that. I'm going to turn my radio on so that really annoying beeping stops there, because now I've bound my radio because I've already bound to the receiver. So let's just take a look up here. You can see we have 11.6 volts, so it does have a built-in voltage sensor there. You have the gyro, accelerometer, and magnetometer on. There's no data flash chip on board, so you can't do any black box logging as it comes. But see, I'll calibrate the accelerometer right now. I'm not going to use it really, but let's look through ports. Only 2 UARTs. Okay, failsafe. I'm just looking for what the stock settings are. I'm going to be doing everything in a different program, actually. That's interesting there. Those PIDs look pretty much stock to me, like the Clean Flight 1. I believe it's 1.12's on here. Yeah, those all look stock. And then that's my radio that I have set up. Okay, so it looks like they set up an angle and horizon mode, as well as an LED. And the beeper was active, but I just disabled that because they had the whole range highlighted, so it was always beeping. So that's why I was doing that. So I just X'd out of that. Let's see. Everything else, there's nothing too much else in here. Let me look 1 second. I'm just trying to see what they have on it here. Okay. Alright, so that's good. So let me disconnect here. I will unplug my battery, and by the way, make sure you have your props off when you're doing this, because they can spin up. So let's close out of Clean Flight, and I'm going to open the Beta Flight configurator, as you can see here. And now this is pretty much like Clean Flight, except it is a better version of it. And I'm not going to connect here. Oops, go all the way up. I'm going to actually flash Beta Flight 2.90 on this. There's not really any reason to use Clean Flight versus Beta Flight, so I just recommend doing this because if you can connect to Clean Flight, you can flash to Beta Flight. This is a NAS board. Sorry there. So let's see. I'm gonna flash 2.9 or no 2.91 is what I'm gonna flash. Okay, there we go. That's good. Let's load the firmware online. And this app here, the configurator, is nice because you can just load Beta Flight from here. You don't have to go look for it on GitHub to find the actual files. So let's see if this flashes correctly. Let's try a different block radius. Let's try that one, Okay, there we go. I actually had to disable the no reboot sequence because I forgot I didn't use a bootloader button when I turned it on. So there it is, verifying programming successful, and the board did a couple little flashes there. So now we should go back to welcome and hit connect, and there we go. We're now in Beta Flight, so you can see this is awesome. So let's plug our battery back in here. You can see everything is working, and you can't use this Beta Flight configurator if you are not on at least 2.9.0 or later, or else some of the functions don't work and it's just not stable and supported. So make sure if you're going to use the configurator, which is awesome because it has some different features, make sure you're on Beta Flight 2.9.0 or greater. Let's go back to the ports. So nothing special here. So on configuration, some things, let's see. It says one shot 125 enabled on the motors. That's good for the Es Cs. Okay, and some of the things it changed when I switched from Clean Flight, it switched motor stop off, which is good for there. Okay, let's look. It has a PWM, so I'm going to go to PPM signal here, and then let's look down, hit save and reboot because I'm using PPM on here. So there we go. And let's take a look. None of these are active. I'm going to also activate air mode because I always use that all the time. And this is just, you can read here, permanently enable air mode, so you don't need a switch or anything. That's nice. And I'm actually going to go to the receiver, and now I'm going to, I already have switches set up in my Tyrannus, so I'm going to confirm that everything is moving the correct way. You see, there we go. Whoops, I accidentally armed it there. I hate stick arming. I'll have to change that in a second. But yep, everything is indeed working as it should be. So now I'm going to go to modes. I'm going to add a range for arm. I just have this, I use my switch on the Tyrannus here. And this is going to differ for your setup, but as you can see there, so arm. And just because I'm setting this up for a beginner, I will add a angle and horizon mode. So as you can see there, I have it on this switch back here, a 3-position switch. And if you don't know how to set up switches on your radio, obviously you're going to need to check that out. So you have angle, horizon, and then acro mode. Let's see, anything else on here? Beeper, okay, I want beeper. I have an aux 3, I believe that should be my, yep, that'll be, this is like my lost alarm. So let's hit save there. Everything should be good, so let's try it. Yep, now the beeper's working and our modes are indeed changing, and you can hear the buzzer making the corresponding changes there. So now I'm going to calibrate the Es Cs, and normally I do a little bit higher level calibration, not just through the configurator, but this is more basic, so I'm just going to do it straight here. So we're going to go to motors, where is it? There we go. And you're going to click I understand the propellers are off, so make sure they're off, obviously. Or no, yeah, hold on. Unplug the battery here, almost forgot. You're going to drag the master all the way to the top. Actually, it's only on 1850, so let me go back to configuration. I'm going to go to minimum 1000, oops, and maximum 2000, just for right now while we're calibrating. It wouldn't have calibrated as well if we didn't, so I'll go back to motors and drag it all the way up. And we have 2000. Now plug in your battery.
Telemetry recovered.
You can hear them making their little tones. And then when they're done, drag it all the way down and just wait for it to finish. Okay, there we go. Uncheck that. I just usually like to power cycle once. Plug it back in. And now what we're going to do is determine our minimum throttle value. So if I zoom in just a little bit here, you can see the motors clearly, hopefully. And if we click that, if we just tap on the motor, if you can see on the master control here, this raises all four at once. You can see them start to spin up. If you just click on it once and then use the arrow keys on your computer here, you can go up one by one. Basically, I'm looking for the minimum value that they start to spin. If you can see that there, some of them are actually starting right now, but that is too low. That'll destabilize you in flight. So you're going to want to keep clicking up until they all get to spinning as low as possible while they're still smooth. And I've got to say, these ESCs, these Emax Lightning, that is some really low RPM. Look at that. Let's go up just a little bit more. 45. Wow, that is definitely a lot better than my little B ESCs. This one over here, really slow. So 45 is probably our value, but I want to be a little bit safer, so I'll go up to 55. Now I'll go to 60. So 1060 there. And you can see they're still spinning really slow because this will enable you to drop your throttle and then be able to do flips and stuff without losing any altitude, really. Because when you're upside down, you don't want to be giving thrust, obviously. So now we can go back to configuration. And what was that? Minimum throttle, I'm going to set to 1060 there. And let me look at anything else on this page. No. Okay, so right here, this is important here. Now this Emax Skyline 32 board is a F1 board, just like the Maze 32. So the gyro update, it can run at 2 kilohertz on both. However, since I'm running the accelerometer for this beginner setup, as you can see here, it's going to put too much stress on it. So I'm just going to run at, let's see, 1 kilohertz is actually the lowest here. So I'm just going to run there at 1 kilohertz gyro and 1 kilohertz PID. So there we go. That'll be pretty good flight performance. And then let's just save and reboot. Okay, there we go. And then let's go back to failsafe. And here, your failsafe, I want it to drop. I just set it to drop, and I also set this to 5. So half a second, and it'll just drop it if it reaches failsafe. So save and reboot there. Pretty simple. Now we go back to here for the PID tuning. You can see these are stock Beta Flight values, stock rates here. I don't actually. Where's the? Okay, they move Super Expo rates down here. I think that's because I have a. I don't know what the quad's doing on here because I have the 2.9.1 on here. And the filters are all stock there. You don't really have to worry about them too much. And it looks. I think integer. I can't remember which one, but float, I think, requires a little more processing power from the board. So I think it automatically detected that it's when I set the gyro rates, and it just changed it to integer, but I'm not quite sure at this moment. That looks all good for there. Once again, just verify all your switches here, and I have my arming switch set up, as you can see there, with air mode, and then my beeper here. So everything looks good. Let me just see. I forget actually what I was running there. Okay, you don't really need to worry about this too much. I'm just looking for a few things through here. Okay, and the LED strip is on, but I'm where is it? I actually don't know where you access the LEDs on here to change the configuration. Okay, but that's pretty much it basically. So everything looks set up. We have our all our modes, our angle, and as well as our arming switch, and we've configured the ESC calibration as well as the minimum throttle value. So everything looks good to me. So now it's time to get it out for the maiden flight. Let's go. Alright guys, I forgot something very important to show you. I had a little whack out. Arm. So in the stock clean flight, it has the yaw offset to 270 degrees. So if you look at the preview, when I was moving the quad, it wasn't doing what I was doing in real life, but I didn't notice that. So you have to go to configuration down here, right here, this 270. Stock, it came at 0 from the Beta Flight switch, so it flipped out on me because it couldn't correct. So you need to make sure it's at 270, hit save and reboot, and then go back to setup and make sure everything is moving the correct way as you're moving it in real life. Alright guys, here we are outside with the JJRC JJPRO P200. Got the battery strapped under there with a little bit of foam to help cushion it against these screws as well as keep it from sliding so much. And I've got a little battery buzzer on the edge here because I forgot to actually set up battery monitoring in Maiden Flight so it would beep when it's low, so that'll get that. So let's just turn on the transmitter here.
Welcome to OpenTX.
There we go, we're all good. And let's plug in the quad. I'm gonna take it out here in case something's wrong. And I forgot to mention it, I actually did put in a little segment, but when I first tried to fly this, arm it for the first time, it just went crazy on me and flipped out. Luckily I had my connector hardly plugged in there, so it fell out. That's because the board alignment isn't pointed forwards, because the way they mounted it, it's actually rotated 90 degrees, so you have to go into the yaw alignment and set the yaw offset to 270 degrees, which I showed you how to do. So let's plug this in here. I'm just going to leave the connector like that with loose. So let's try and arm it. Okay, there we go. We did arm it. You can see the motors spinning at idle speed. You can choose to have them not spin upon arm if you want. I know I used to do that, but once you progress into FPV flying and you get better at it, you'll realize that you definitely want them to spin, but you know, your choice. So let's arm it here and let's shut off the remote. Just to check fail-safe. There we go.
Welcome to
Let's see if we can
OpenTX.
get it back. Yep, okay. So let's take off here in angle mode. Let's set up angle for this beginner setup, and right off the bat I can tell, you can see those oscillations there, those wobbles. This tune is really bad. Okay, when I switch to acro and it takes self-leveling out of the equation, it flies a lot smoother. Oh, okay, the rates are a little slower than I'm used to. Bumped them up just a little bit, but with self-leveling you can see it just shakes really bad. So I'm definitely going to need to tune this guy a lot. And that may be the PIDs are meant for a 4S setup with Maiden Flight. But I'll just fly it in self-level here. Wow, that is really respectable for a 3S setup right there. That punch. Let's bring it back and do a full punch out here. I'll put in acro just so it doesn't oscillate as much. And there we go. Wow, very little prop wash too. Wow, that's okay. In acro, that's actually not too bad. So it's just the self-level that's screwing it up there. And I never fly with self-level anymore. But since this is a beginner setup I'm doing here, I thought I'd leave it on. So let's go back into acro. Let's do a full speed pass. Alright, that's pretty respectable. For a 3S setup, that's probably like 60 miles an hour there. For 3S. And now I don't have ESC braking on because I didn't go into the Heli suite because that's a little more advanced for you guys. So for the beginner setup, I'll just leave it off. But it will make a huge improvement to the control if you have it on. Wow, yeah. These red bottoms, these red butts, two-bladed props 3S is definitely a lot better than I had expected from this guy. Pretty quiet too with the two-bladed prop, so go back into self-level, or let's just go acro because it's shaking too much. There's the yaw I have on it, and then obviously quite a bit of bounce back and shake after the rolls. And that'll be helped a lot by ESC braking. So let's do a self-level funnel. Try and bring it a little closer. That's funny. Yeah, but definitely, the PIDs definitely are awful. I've seen the Clean Flight ones. The stock Clean Flight 1.1.13, I think, is what comes on it. Is they're not as bad, but these Beta Flight 2.9.1 ones aren't good for this setup. I'm not saying they're bad, it's just for this particular setup, they're not good. And that's to be expected. Every copter's different, and if you can get away with not tuning off of stock PIDs, you, my friend, are lucky. So, yeah, let's put it back into acro. Just fly it a little more. Uh-oh. Battery's pretty low here. Let's just come in and land and disarm there. So there we go. That was my first impression, first flight, maiden flight actually, of the JJRC JJPRO P200. And I've got to say, I am impressed with the 3S on this so far. Because, you know, it's actually kind of comparable to my 4S 210 that I built. It's not quite there, but once I put 4S and tri-blades on, I think this could definitely be there or even beat it. You know, so, but 3S, I'm very impressed. The PIDs, I will definitely be tuning, and I will do a second follow-up video once I have it fully tuned, and I'll show you my PIDs there. Since this is a pre-built model, you can share them, you can just plug them in, and they will work on your setup at least pretty well, a lot better than these stock ones. But yeah, that was, I did a lot better than I thought it would on that, oh, I just realized I flew it with the connector hardly plugged in. Ooh, lucky it didn't vibrate out there. But stay tuned for more coming on this guy, like I said, once I finish tuning it for 3S, do some FPV with it, and then I'll switch it up and change it to 4S and change out the props and just basically redo everything to the best it can be. I might flash multi-shot on these ESCs, I am not sure yet, I'll have to check it out more. But yeah, please subscribe if you want already. I'll leave a link down below to check out my unboxing, to a little bit more in depth on all the parts on here. Stay tuned for more, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.